action-packed edition of Weather for Weather Geeks on this Tuesday evening. We have so much to talk about. Let's try not to make this video too long. Let's get right to it and look at today's almanac. Now, today is the first day that we're going to use the new climatological averages, which were released today. I talked about this last evening on this video. The new climate averages cover the period 1991 to 2020, replacing 1981 to 2010. Every 10 years, the averages shift forward. And so the new average high on the 4th day of May is 68. In the last set of climate averages, it was 66. Went up a couple of degrees, and going up is something we'll be talking about a lot when it comes to comparing the current averages, the new averages, to the old ones. We outdid our average today by 6 degrees before the rain pushed in, 74 at the airport this afternoon. Probably the last time we're going to see a mid-70s high temperature for a while. Let's talk about these new averages, and we're going to be talking about this in a lot of videos. We're just going to kind of scrape the surface a little bit this evening, but stay tuned. More updates coming, not only on this video, but on my weather blog and on social media as well as we dive into the numbers. Again, the new averages based on temperature records from 1991 to 2020, and compared to the 20th century average, well, of course, over the last few decades, the climate's been warming. Not only here locally, but across the entire planet, going back not only a few decades, but many, many decades. Locally, we've seen pretty consistent warming since the 1980s. Prior to that, our averages did not fluctuate a whole lot during the middle of the 20th century, compared to the entire the average for the entire century. So no surprise there. The averages. The temperatures have been going up compared to that long-term 20th century average. When we compare the last two 30-year periods, so the difference between the old 81 to 2010 time period to the newest one, 91 to 2020. Here's a look at the country compared to when we compare those two data sets. And yeah, locally, this new 30-year period is definitely warmer than the old one. The only part of the country that the averages did not change much across the northern plains, interestingly enough. But everywhere else across the lower 48 states, we saw a very big increase in daily temperature records, in monthly temperature averages, in seasonal averages, and, of course, annual averages as well. Again, we're going to dive deeper into these numbers in future editions of this video when there's a little less practical weather to talk about. Let's talk about what happened last evening. If you watched Weather for Weather Geeks last evening, I said nothing about the possibility of a tornado or severe weather or anything like that for last evening. Well, wouldn't you know it, as we went through the 8 o'clock hour, a downpour developed and tapped into a modest amount of wind shear aloft, and this produced a lowering and even, by video evidence, a brief touchdown between Beloit and Canfield, out towards Greenford. Now, on the video, this just scraped the ground for a few seconds, it looks like. And there was no evidence that this touched the ground again, as that system, or that cell, can't even really call it a thunderstorm. There was no thunder and lightning with it. But as that moved through the southern tier of Mahoning County, there was no evidence that it touched the ground once again. But that changed across the state line. What we're looking at here is the radar-derived rotation tracks, and you can see the blue colors start appearing right around New Middletown, heading across Bessemer, North Beaver, the south side of Newcastle. There was more pronounced rotation when this moved across Lawrence County, and so the National Weather Service in Pittsburgh did hoist a tornado warning as a result. There was no tornado warning issued in Mahoning County by the Cleveland Weather Service office, which I think was a good call, because there just wasn't any evidence that this was threatening to touch the ground. But the rotation did tighten up again as it crossed the state line, and so Pittsburgh hoisted the tornado warning, and for good reason, because it turns out that briefly a tornado did touch down. This was about 15 miles east of Newcastle to the north and west of Portersville, in a pretty rural area, at about 9:37 p.m. This was only on the ground for about 1,000 feet. A very low-end EF0 tornado, and it caused a little bit of tree damage. Here specifically is where this is. We're going to zoom in on the map here. The red line is the track. This was between Princeton and Rose Point, just north of 422. Again, wooded area. A few trees had some damage. That was about it. Thankfully, no structure damage or anything like that. Some of the other stats, wind speeds, bottom end of the F0 range, 60 to 65. This was on the ground for 0.2 miles, only about 1,000 feet or so, and the maximum width was estimated to be about 50 yards. Here's a look at the radar right around 935, 937. This scan was at 935 off the Pittsburgh radar. Reflectivity over here, but here's the velocity data. And you can see that the couplet's a little more pronounced than it was earlier on. So you've got a pretty good green-red couplet right here. The inbound winds, the green colors, the outbound winds, the red colors. And again, the circulation tightened up just enough that it lowered to the ground for 1,000 feet and then lifted back up. But the tornado warning was definitely warranted. And so I got on the air and interrupted the voice. And if you've ever wanted to get some hate mail or some phone calls, be a television meteorologist and interrupt certain programs. And on NBC, it's The Voice. It's our, other than sports, it's our highest rated program. So some people were not necessarily too happy. We had nothing like that today, although we did have a gusty line of showers and storms that moved through early to mid-afternoon. Captured a time lapse from Columbiana. Whoosh, there we go. Bout of heavy rain, some thunder and lightning, and some brief gusty winds as this moved from southwest to northeast across the area earlier on this afternoon. Ever since then, we haven't had much more than a couple of showers around. There's been no thunder and lightning over the last couple of hours. Yeah, briefly heavy downpour, maybe even a clap of thunder, something that can't be ruled out this evening, but boy, I'd really be shocked if we had any sort of repeat of what we had last evening. The severe weather threat definitely higher this evening off to our south, down towards the Gulf Coast. That's a mean line of storms moving through the deep south, the Gulf Coast region. Severe thunderstorm watch out for parts of Georgia and the Carolinas still. This evening, where it's been a pretty busy day. Colder air is on the move. It's in the 40s and 50s to our north and west. This 62 we have locally. We're not going to see that number again for a little while. Cold front will march through tonight. Showers will come and go, most numerous over the next few hours. Probably get an overnight break. And then I think rain will become more prominent again as we head towards tomorrow morning. In fact, this will just become just kind of a steady light rain for most of the area at daybreak tomorrow. Not very nice as we head off to work and school tomorrow morning. Any severe weather threat tomorrow is well off to our south and east. It's just going to be a gloomy Wednesday. Boy, bundle up too. Temperatures tomorrow morning will be around 47. The mercury in most places won't get much higher than about 51 tomorrow afternoon. Yuck. Much more like early March. The sky clears tomorrow night, and with that clearing sky, I think we're going to drop down into the 30s, and especially in the colder sheltered valleys. Not going to be shocked if we have some patchy frost to contend with Thursday morning. A little trough of low pressure moves through, another little potent disturbance. Thursday night into Friday, this will be another raw, chilly, damp day Friday with the possibility of some passing showers. You might not have to head too far to the north to find a few snowflakes trying to mix in parts of Michigan, maybe parts of Ontario, parts of northern New York as well. This pattern is looking increasingly kind of grim if you like mid-spring weather, as most of us do. Look how far below the average we're going to be over the next 10 days. Our averages, according to the new data, for the next 10 days between 68 and 71. We're going to be 10 to 15 below that all the way through Mother's Day on Sunday, and still several degrees cooler than average as we head into next week. As far as the weekend forecast, I did insert a shower chance into Saturday's forecast, and maybe we get a couple of showers on Sunday as well, so it's not looking great for moms this weekend. We're going to be bundling up, and it's not going to be pool weather, that is for sure. All right, that's it for me tonight. Thanks for watching this extended version of Weather for Weather Geeks. See you back here on Wednesday.